Good evening, and thank you for joining us for our 5:30 p.m. update on Hurricane Helene from the city of St. Petersburg. I'm Mayor Ken Welch, and I'm joined by our Emergency Management Manager, Amber Bolding. Hurricane Helene is currently passing the Tampa Bay area as a Category 3 storm. Throughout the evening, we'll continue to see this storm's intensity and its impacts as it moves past our area. Remember, it's not over yet. We're still anticipating unprecedented levels of storm surge between 5 and 8 feet. Right now, we're expecting the highest level of storm surge to peak around midnight. We've also begun to receive calls about high water rescues. Please remember, our first responders will conduct search and rescue missions as conditions permit. As we continue to feel the impacts from Helene, I want to stress, please stay off the roads. This is for your own safety. There could be live power lines and other debris in flood waters. Remember, it is never safe to walk or drive through flood waters. Please also do not go sightseeing. Seeing the storm damage is not more important than your life. We've limited access to two of our hardest hit neighborhoods, Shore Acres and Snell Isle. Only residents will be allowed access into those neighborhoods at this time. City officials will begin the debris clearing process as soon as it's safe to do so. Tomorrow, once the storm passes our area, we'll begin to shift into recovery operations. That means we'll initiate the damage assessment process, deploy street teams to neighborhoods, and coordinate debris removal. Throughout the recovery process, we'll provide you with ongoing updates. Now, there is another important development that I also want to make residents aware of. Because of the historic level of potential storm surge, there is a possibility that our Northeast Water Reclamation Facility may need to be taken offline. If that occurs, that will mean that some residents will not be able, for a short time, to take showers, to do laundry, or to flush toilets. If the storm surge rises above 7 feet at that facility, which is an unprecedented amount of storm surge, we'll have to make a decision to turn the plant off to ensure we can resume water service after the storm. This will ensure that we are able to quickly repair the facility if it experiences extensive flood damage. Now, it could take a minimum of 48 hours to resume plant operations after it's turned off. Now, we realize this is a challenging time for all of us, and please be assured that this is not a decision that we take lightly. This is the only treatment plant that we anticipate may be impacted by storm surge. Now, we're hoping that it doesn't come to this, but we want residents to be prepared for all possibilities. We'll continue to monitor the impacts from the storm and provide updates as they are available. In closing, once again, please shelter in place and stay until after the storm completely passes. As we continue to respond to the storm and prepare for recovery, we remain in constant communication with our federal and state partners and thank them for their support during this time. For ongoing updates, please monitor local news, the National Weather Service, disaster.pinellas.gov, and social media. Thank you. I'll now turn it over to Yolanda for a Spanish translation.
El huracán Helene está pasando actualmente por el área de Tampa Bay como una tormenta de categoría 3. Recuerde, todavía no ha terminado. Anticipamos niveles sin precedentes de marejada ciclónica entre 5 y 8 pies. En este momento esperamos que el agua siga subiendo hasta medianoche. Si se encuentra en una zona inundada, haga todo lo posible por llegar a un terreno más alto hasta que pase la tormenta. Mientras seguimos sintiendo los efectos de Helene, insistimos en que no manejen por las calles, por favor, para su propia seguridad. Hemos limitado el acceso a 2 de nuestros barrios más afectados, Shore Acres y Snell Isle. Solo las personas que viven allí se les permitirá acceso. Hay otro anuncio muy importante. Debido al nivel histórico de inundaciones, existe la posibilidad de que nuestra planta de agua del noreste deje de funcionar. Si una instalación pierde operaciones como esta, eso significa que algunos residentes no podrán ducharse, lavar ropa o descargar. Si la marea sube a más de 7 pies en esa planta, tendremos que tomar la decisión de apagar la planta para asegurarnos de que podamos continuar con el servicio de agua después de la tormenta. Esperamos que no llegue a eso, pero queremos que los residentes estén preparados para todas las posibilidades. Seguiremos vigilando los efectos de la tormenta y ofreceremos información en cuanto lo más pronto disponible.
Thank you, Yolanda. Amber?
Thank you, Mayor. Category 3 Hurricane Helene is now passing Tampa Bay at about 120 miles to our west. This morning we talked about the worst of the surge coming once that eye of that storm reaches the Tampa Bay level and starts to move north. We're going to see those winds start to shift onshore, and that's what we're going to see. We've already seen the rise in the tide and the storm surge throughout the day. Unfortunately, it's not the worst of it. We're starting to see that rise come now that the onshore winds have shifted. To give you an idea, we're currently around 2.5, not quite 3 feet of storm surge. We're still expecting 5 to 8 feet of storm surge, some models showing the higher end of that. We don't say that to scare you or panic you if you're still at home and you didn't evacuate in one of these areas. We want you to prepare for it. And we want to, it's so important that you shelter in place. Now's not the time to panic and attempt to leave. It is not safe to go out in stormwater. It's time to shelter in place and come up with a plan for your family over the next few hours. We're expected to see that peak surge sometime around midnight. Use the time now to come up with that plan. So to reiterate this morning, make sure your power is secured by flipping that main breaker. Shut off the gas if you're able to. Go to a higher floor if you have one in your house. If not, bed, countertop, tabletop, find a higher area that you and your family can get on to get out of the flood water. After the surge peaks sometime around midnight, it's going to be slow to recede. We don't expect roads to be passable until late Friday morning, possibly early afternoon. That's also a note for the folks that did evacuate your homes. I know you're anxious to get back to your homes as soon as possible to check on them. Roads are going to be dangerous at daylight in the morning, so please wait until you get the all clear that roads will be passable for you. In an emergency, you can always call 911. We're here. We have high water teams staged around the city. However, there are conditions that don't allow us to go out in high water, even with the high water rescue vehicles. We've been talking about surge. Wind is a very big issue out there. Our winds have continued to strengthen. We expect them to continue to strengthen as Hurricane Helene passes us closely. The highest winds will probably be around 6 to 8 p.m. before we start seeing them slowly taper back off. So it's not safe out there. We want you to make sure that if you did evacuate, you're not out, you're not joyriding. It's incredibly dangerous on the streets. Please stay inside until we start seeing those winds recede. So please continue to monitor communications, monitor city socials as always, stay tuned to your local media, the radio, get those updates, stay informed, stay safe. Again, now's not the time to panic, it's time to make responsible decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber. And that will conclude our update. Are there any questions?
Hi, Mayor. I asked about the water systems this morning, and everything's running fine. So what happened between this morning and today that now the reclamation, that the facility in Northeast St. Pete might have to be taken off?
Well, I'll let Claude explain it, but my understanding is this potential has always been there since the plant was built, I believe in the 1950s. It's the level of potential storm surge that is really changed. And I think this has only happened one time, I think Claude said in 1985. But that potential has always been there with the plant, so nothing has really changed except for the amount of storm surge that we're expecting. So I'll let Claude talk about it a little bit more.
So as this storm has progressed, we continue to get updates and projections of what may or may not happen. As we get closer to seeing what the actual surge may be, we are realizing that it is possible that the surge may be high enough that we, in order to protect the plant and have it be able to operate after the storm, that we would need to go ahead and shut it down during the storm to protect it. And that process takes a while. Shutting down a plant isn't just like flipping off a switch at a light switch. It takes time. We have to have our staff go out and safely shut down the electronics. And then the staff will leave the plant site to protect themselves. Once the surge is passed and the waters have gone down, we'll be able to go back onto the plant site and to methodically turn it on piece by piece, while we're also inspecting the areas that were flooded to make sure that we have no electrical equipment that has been damaged by the salt water. If that electrical equipment has been damaged by salt water, we'll have to repair it before we can safely turn the plant on. So that's one of the reasons why this could be a 2-day or more process, because if there's any equipment that actually has been damaged that makes it unsafe to turn it back on, we're going to have to quickly replace that piece of equipment.
So this is something that could have been a possibility before, I mean, was this anticipated even yesterday, or did something develop even?
It's something that we've been monitoring it. We are lucky that we're not getting a storm surge greater than that. And we've been hearing storm surges that have been across a range of different values. And so as our plant staff have been preparing for this, they've been narrowing it down as to when would be the trigger for them to realize it's time to shut it down. So it's taken us some time to do that evaluation while also watching what's actually happening with the storm.
And that trigger would be a certain amount of storm surge?
Correct.
And what's that number, like 8 feet?
7 feet on the site. But recognize that it would be 7 feet on the site. Just because we might have 8 feet out in the bay, which is usually we talk about the storm surge out in the bay, that water has to travel across land, across mangroves and other areas to get to the site. And so what we actually see on the site won't necessarily be reflected in the bay.
And how many customers does that plant serve, and where are they?
We're currently working through that now to come up with that number.
Do you have a ballpark estimate, like if you live in the area or close by?
Pretty much anything north of 30th Avenue North.
Okay, so you could say all residents
North of 30th Avenue North as a rough approximation, but we're working on getting the exact locations, the exact addresses, so that we can, if we have to do this, and again, we're not saying we're going to do this, we're saying that we're preparing for that eventuality. If we have to do this, then we will be able to notify all the customers affected.
Is there anything that could have been done proactively in advance to avoid this situation, or it's just the fact that it's storm surge? It's just because this is
Right. Right. Now, we have long-term plans that we have been anticipating sea level rise. One of the projects that came out of those long-term plans for sea level rise is an upgrade to that plant that is currently going on right now. But it's an upgrade that's not finished yet. And we anticipate that upgrade to be finished probably around 2026. And that upgrade would have given us more leeway in a situation like this. I don't have the exact number for you, but it was meant to help prepare this plant for greater storm surge because of sea level rise.
And these adjustments, like if it was, today was 2026 and you got 7 foot, you would be okay?
We believe we would, but I'm not going to promise that, but we believe we would, because we're making some significant upgrades to our electrical system. It's really the electrical system that is the most critical part of this plant. And a lot of this electrical system was built back in the 50s and then upgraded in the 70s. And so this is it's a $50-some million project that we are undergoing right now. It's under construction, but unfortunately we didn't get it finished in time for this event.
Can we hear more about the high water rescues? Where are they? How many have happened?
Chief Womack.
So, Ian Womack, St. Pete Fire Rescue. We still have high water resources staged south, mid, and north. Station 8, Station 4, Station 7, and Station 13. And that includes a mix of high water vehicles and boat teams. At some point when the water reaches 4 to 5 feet, depending on the vehicle, those vehicles aren't able to operate anymore, so what they become is a drop-off point for boats that operate in deeper water. We've also made a request for some additional assets, and we're waiting to hear back on an ETA on that just to be prepared. And those assets will be available for whatever needs there are. We've only done one removal so far of an individual in a car, but that's been the only response we've been asked to do.
Okay, so the only rescue that's happened has just been one from a car?
It was in Shore Acres area. Yeah.
Okay, so like a car that just stalled out.
Right, stalled out in the water, yeah. Person wasn't injured, we were able to safely remove her and her pets.
Okay, was the truck able to get in, or did you use a boat?
Yes, we used a vehicle for that. Yep, cool.
Thank you, Colleen. Any other questions? All right. Thank you all. Stay safe out there.